It is now time to call the meeting to order. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
During the moment of silence, you can do whatever you think you ought to do. I always pray. It's probably one of the best things my grandmother ever taught me. Very good, thank you. Next is roll call. How about Bob?
I'm here.
He's here. Louis here, and Doug is here. And the next will be public comment. Is there anybody in the public wants to come up and give a 5-minute dissertation and hopefully not bang on the...
Don't give them your gavel.
Oh, okay. Nobody wants to come up and say anything? I don't know what they're here for then. Okay, how about administrative business? I need a motion to adjourn as the Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners and convene as the Board of County Canvassers.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. And we will now become the, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Probably
Aye.
get that out of the way, shouldn't I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, did you want to give her dissertation or? We'll listen to a dissertation.
Dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you call what the clerk's going to say?
That's, well, I don't know what she's going to say. She's going to talk something about accepting the votes that seems the rest of the country can't get accomplished. Isn't that amazing? How we can't get a vote accomplished. The most important thing in the world other than praying, I hate to say that we have a society that will not spend the money. We think schools are important, this is important, that's important, but we cannot get voting done. That's a bunch of hogwash. You talk about a swamp. So, and I just found out something bad, and I know it doesn't have anything to do with this. You're going to be very upset. I found out I got one more meeting. I don't leave here till the 15th. And it really bothers me because I won't be able to give my dissertations. Go ahead.
The reason for the canvass today is to certify the November 6th general election. Leavenworth County had a 57.68% turnout, which was probably 14% higher than most gubernatorial elections, so we were very pleased at that. We have a total of 45,582 registered voters. We had 26,290 people vote. Each one of our precincts balanced. Each one, I do have a breakdown on the percentage of votes per precinct. We balanced the poll books. Everything did balance correctly. We do have some write-ins that we will look at later on this morning. But the main purpose of the canvass today would be to, the Board of Canvassers looks at the group of challenged and provisional ballots that the county had during this election. I did do a spreadsheet which goes over the qualified and not qualified recommendations by the county clerk's office. We had a total of 460 provisionals in Leavenworth County. We qualified or believed that they should be qualified 273. These I did break down, which I will supply you with a spreadsheet of the breakdown.
Thank you.
Are these provisionals anything that would upset anybody's election?
Well, we'll just have to look at that. If you look at your spreadsheet, you will see that I broke down the provisionals by precinct and ward in Leavenworth County. These sheets are duplex, so some of them you'll have to look on the back side. I think the ones you guys got are on both sides. The reasons that we qualified or recommend qualification is if someone was previously registered in the county, they went to the correct polling place and voted, then we recommend that to be qualified. The second reason for qualification would be a name change. If someone was previously registered, they went to the correct polling place, re-registered, then that was qualified. We had another reason: if a voter was mailed an advance ballot, they possibly did not receive the advance ballot in the mail, or they received it and didn't get it voted in time to be returned, then they could come to the precinct and vote a provisional ballot, which was counted as long as we did not receive the ballot that was mailed. Okay? We also had reasons for partials. And a partial ballot, which we will look at each one of those individually, would be if someone was previously registered in the county, but they did not go to the correct polling place or to the correct precinct, then they went to a different one. They voted a provisional ballot. They should have voted, and where they did vote their ballot, those races would count or not count. For instance, all the state races, no matter where you went, no matter what polling place you went to, those would count. The differences would be the representative districts, because we had 4 representative districts running: the 38th, the 40th, the 41st, and the 42nd. Those could possibly be different. Also, the commission races could be different. We had a couple local individual races that possibly would not count. For instance, the township officers. So we have 15 partials that we will look at. Then we have not qualified. Out of the 460 that the clerk's office recommends qualified, we have 172 that we recommend not be qualified. And let me go over those also as a group. We had 170 that were not previously registered in Leavenworth County. If someone is not previously registered in the county, then that ballot is not going to count. There were several reasons. Some people thought that they had got re-registered either through the DMV or an online process, and there are different ones of those throughout the state, some that the Secretary of State sponsors, some that some third parties sponsor. But we had 170 that were not registered. We went really above and beyond with that 170. We checked with the Secretary of State's office. They had sent us a list of some individuals that registered online, but due to an error either in spelling or address, they did not show up registered to vote on our site. We checked that list and gave every voter the benefit of the doubt, because if they were on that list, even though we did not show them in our system, then we qualified their vote. So this 170, we did not show qualified. We had 2 voters this time that actually received an advance ballot by mail, returned that ballot, still went to the polling place, voted a provisional ballot, but we did not qualify those 2 due to the fact that they had previously voted and returned their ballot. So that's the breakdown on what we have to present to the board. Do you have any questions on provisionals?
Is there an actual cutoff date? In other words, I didn't get my ballot, and then all of a sudden, 10 years later, the post office finds it. Do we have to do in other words, is there a cutoff date when it's no longer you get to vote?
After the canvass today, unless there is a reason for a challenge, there will no longer be any ballots counted. In August of this year, we began something new, and that could be that a voter could receive a ballot in the mail, and it used to be prior to this year that that ballot had to be returned to the county clerk's office by 7 o'clock on election day. That law changed so that a voter now has the opportunity to bring their mailed advance ballot to a polling place, and it's going to be counted. The other stipulation with the new regulation is if a ballot is postmarked on election day and we receive it in the county clerk's office up until Friday after the election, then those are counted. We did have 302 ballots that were either received at the polling place or received in the mail. Now, these have to be postmarked November 6th or before. We did have 1 ballot that was postmarked November 7th, but all the rest of them were clearly postmarked November 6th, so we did count those.
Did we accept the one on the 7th?
No, we
Thank
did
you.
not accept the one on the 7th. But out of the 302, all the rest of them were accepted and counted. And they are in the total that I referred to earlier of the 26,290. So I guess if you don't have any other questions on that, I would like for you to make a motion to qualify the ballots that I recommend, and that would be 273 ballots. There again, they were previously registered in the county.
Okay.
We can go over it
And
by...
this is a recommended qualified count.
Okay, thank you.
You have any questions?
No,
Not
sir.
doing it?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'll accept the motion, yes.
I move that we accept the 273 provisional ballots as recommended by the county election officer for the November 6, 2018 election.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
I thought of something, the 200 and how many, 70?
273.
273.
What were the reasons? You leave the county, You know, you got the same stipulation on your driver's license. Oh, I didn't know that. You know, is it because we don't get the rules out, or can we get the rules out to everybody so we don't have all these excuses why we're in this predicament, why we have to spend extra time because I didn't know what my role in life was.
I believe that we do try to get the word out. We try to let people know that they must re-register. When an individual goes and changes their license or changes their address at the DMV, then there is an option there for them to re-register. I believe that the candidates and the parties do their due diligence in trying to get people registered correctly. This year we had several drives by individuals attempting to get all individuals registered correctly. So I do think that we try hard. Sometimes, you know, I can't give the reasons, but everybody knows how busy society is today, and you know, maybe they don't hear it or know why, but I do think that we try very hard to let people know.
I think the
And there
information's
is-
out there.
I think
There is a responsibility on the voter. I mean, we try very hard, so.
I think all the parties, Independent, Democrat, Republican, all go overboard to get everybody the chance to vote. And yet, we still have people that, well,
We get that Saturday vote and we're gonna have it covered.
yeah, we get that mail-in, you know, just mail, you get the ballot and everybody mails it in. But there is a problem with that. Everybody says, well, you're gonna get the illiterate and those that aren't qualified voting. Well, we're going that direction anyway, so let's give everybody a chance for me to get 19 ballots from all the elderly in town, and I fill them out and they sign them and send them in, and what other falsification of balloting there is. It's going to take place. So Saturday, fine, but if you have, everybody has a ballot that is sent to their address, to them, then they should not have an excuse other than their daughter didn't come over and vote for them, or what the excuse is going to be. It just, you know, it goes on, and we don't seem to have the problem. Of course, we're only a county. Look at the problems throughout the United States on balloting. It's just, but it's not important. Voting is not important. It's one of the most important things in your life. But it's not important to some people. So we're going to go overboard to get them. So the motion is there. How do you vote?
Aye.
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 The other thing we'll need a motion on is to qualify the partials. There again, not all races will count. I guess because we do have several people here, we can probably go over some of those partials a little bit. Planners 2 had what I would consider 3 partials. Out of the 3 partials, 2 of the state reps will not count. Well, really, 3 of the state rep votes will not count, and 1 county commissioner. At Sacred Heart Parish, we had precinct 2-6. They also had a partial where there will be a difference in a state rep. Calvary Baptist, 2nd Precinct, 7th Ward, has 1 partial that will not count the representative or the commissioner. In Church of the Open Door, 5th Precinct, 6th Ward has 1 partial that we will not count the state rep or the commission. Also, 3-7, 3rd Precinct, 7th Ward has 2 partials, which the state rep and the commission will not count. At the Lansing Community Center, Ward 2, we had 1 where the state rep and Landell Water Board will not count. In Easton Township, we had 1 that the only difference there would be the township officer would not count. At High Prairie Church, we had 1 where the representative will not count or the county commission. West Haven Baptist Church, we had 1 partial where the state rep and the township will not count. The VFW, we had 2 partials where the state rep will not count. And at the Catholic Church, Tonganoxie South Precinct, we had 1 partial where the county commission will not count. So we have a total of 15 partial provisional ballots that I would like a motion that we can qualify those with the differences that I just mentioned.
Number 15.
15.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve the qualification of the partial of 15 ballots as recommended by the county election officer for the November 6, 2018 election.
Second.
Any discussion? How do you vote, Bob?
Aye.
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 Our third motion will be for the recommendation of the not qualified. If anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer that. I did explain where I came up with the 172, which I would recommend not qualified due to the major factor of 170 of them not being previously registered in the county and 2 previously voting.
Were these brought over from Missouri like we did in the 1800s? No, they weren't. Oh, okay.
No, we didn't bring anything
We
over.
didn't bring anything over.
No.
Okay, would you like to do a motion on that? You're doing good.
Okay. I'd like to move that we not qualify the 172 provisional ballots that, as recommended by the county election officer for
172 or 170?
172, I believe. wasn't it?
172. What's yours say?
170.
If you go over, it's
Mine says
172.
Mine says 172.
Okay.
Was it a Cessna or a Piper?
It was a Cessna.
Cessna. Well, I still have a 170, but that's all right.
Okay.
What's the difference in 2 votes?
For the November 6, 2018 election.
Okay.
Second.
How do you vote, Bob?
Aye.
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 We had 1 vacancy in the county that was on the ballot, and that was for Delaware Township Clerk, I believe. Yeah. Delaware Township Clerk. We did have a write-in that was successful on that. Stacy Driscoll received 15 votes, either advance or wrote in at the polling place. So I would need a motion to have Stacy Driscoll be the new Delaware Township Clerk based upon the write-ins that were done at the November 6th general election.
I'll make a motion that we approve Stacy Driscoll to be the Delaware Township Clerk, as stated by the Janet Kosinski.
Okay.
I'll second it.
How do you vote, Doug?
Aye.
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 When you're all done, would you mark on here where 172 is? I don't mind losing all my faculties, but, you know,
It is
I think the
172.
eyesight's still good.
I think they did that deliberately.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We're going to go downstairs now and go ahead and send the qualified or partially qualified through the scanner. I will come up with a report that each of the commission will sign, and we will have the certification of the November 6th general election. I do invite anyone here in the public who would like to come down and watch the process. They can certainly do that. It will be in my office.
Okay. Go ahead.
Ready for a motion to move out of the Board of Canvassers?
Well, that's what I was curious of. And then when you come back up, do we have to go back in?
Yes.
And then go back up, okay. Yes, David, you gave the legal,
You needed to end this session and then start a new one.
thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I move that we adjourn as a Board of Canvassers and return to our regular session.
Second.
How do you vote, Bob?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, I wasn't reading that, I was just taking notes on the numbers. I wasn't looking at this, I was taking notes.
Oh, okay.
That's why mine was accurate.
We have a new senator here?
We do.
Yes.
And he braved the elements yesterday.
I know that.
It was too cold to ride, so he ran.
All right.
He ran the crowd. Although people couldn't recognize him because he was so bundled up.
Okay. We'll go on with the rest of our meeting, then we'll come back. Up comes the consent agenda. Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Approval of the minutes, first of all. Anything you'd like to mention on the minutes?
No, sir?
Bob?
No, I don't.
The only thing disbanding, you're going to have that ready for the 20th on the legality of the Port Authority thing.
And are we going to invite City of Leavenworth, Lansing?
Well, Leavenworth is the other member of the current agreement, so we'll let them know it's going to be on the 20th, and the Port Authority.
I think
they all are aware of that.
Invited to this.
Well, any information, I think we ought to take that a little further. Any information that we've been discussing, has that been passed on to the City of Leavenworth?
They have everything that we have.
Yeah, and I just went through probably an hour's worth of dissertation by the City of Leavenworth last night, where they refuse meetings on, and you can name the subject matters. But if they've got all that information, we can send a nice little letter of romantic conversation to them, or what it takes to get them here. If they attend, that's fine. But just send them a little memo through their non-elected official, and he'll talk to an elected official, and that elected official will pass it back to him that he doesn't want to come to the meeting. I might be surprised. So that will take care of that.
Okay.
On the minutes, did anybody go to the Grange Hall thing?
That's today.
That's today.
That's
It's 11
today.
to 1 and
11 to 1, yeah.
5 to 7. I
Yeah.
will be eating lunch there.
Very good. And there was a request by me, information on how to improve voting. And I'd like all the people to send an input. Would you like to see a mail-in ballot where everybody gets a ballot that is registered to vote, and that is to bypass the comments that come out that say, you're going to get all these people voting that don't know a thing about the voting. Well, we have a lot of people that don't know much about anything that are doing things in our society. But I think everybody ought to have a mail-in ballot that eliminates with a cutoff date that eliminates Mr. Hollins wanting to have Saturday voting because they'd have an excuse for Saturday. I mean, we got volleyball, we got
So Bob and I
soccer.
support the Saturday elections?
No, I didn't say
Oh,
that.
okay.
No, I don't support Saturday voting.
Oh. But it was your thought.
Yes, sir.
And it was a good thought, but if you have mail-in ballots, you don't have to worry about specific days, you just put a cutoff time. Okay, anything on the upcoming agenda for the starting Monday, the 19th of November? Anybody have anything on that?
No, I'm okay.
Only thing on that was we got quarterly reports, but we do have legal discussion on the removing ourselves from the Leavenworth County Port Authority. That looks like a good agenda. How about the warrants, the check register? Anybody got any questions on that?
Under $500,000.
We still got legal fees coming in.
Legal fees are good. Yeah, I like legal fees.
Good.
Seems in the paper that a lot of people don't like legal fees, but that's just a difference of opinion. We did spend $70,000 on striping roads, and I thought that was good. We're getting our road striped. We're doing what the county's supposed to do. Asphalt materials, $9,000. Still on the roads, $17,000 on rock. And that's part of what our job is, to take care of that portion. And last but not least, our approval of signing OCBs, and I think I was told we have 19 of those, and I'll sign those later. Wasn't it 19? 16. That's better than 19. So I'll accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. How you vote?
Aye.
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 Very good. Next will be formal board action. Consider a motion to appoint Jack Angelo to the Wyandotte Leavenworth Advisory Board of Council on Aging.
Does Linda have anything to say?
Well, I'm going to talk about KU, but did you want to say anything on Jack?
The person that we're recommending that you approve.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I need.
Is that all you need?
Yep.
Do you know Jack well?
I don't know Jack well, no.
He's
Don't know Jack, huh?
He's got a wonderful granddaughter playing at KU volleyball. Oh, that wasn't important, was it? No, Jack's a good man. I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve Jack Angelo for, Jack Angelo to the Wyandotte Leavenworth Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Okay, for the Council on Aging. How do you vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, takes care of that one. Presentations and discussion items. Presentations are material of general concern where no action or vote is requested or anticipated. Council on Aging is going to give a report on the KU basketball, on the Council on Aging. And K-State won. We don't want to leave K-State out.
Good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
First, we'll start off with our transportation program. Senior Express continues to increase every year. Would want to point out to you the average wheelchair rides that we're providing per month is 236 as of 9 months. So we will exceed that we've provided the previous 3 years. So, I think it just shows the trend of people that perhaps were homebound now are able to get out. You know, there's more mobility devices. They're willing to go out and leave their home to do things like shopping and essential business. All our other transportation that we provide to seniors, the 9-month trend, we're also increasing. and will exceed what we have done the previous 3 years. Do you have any questions about our transportation program?
I do. How many vehicles do you have that transport?
We have 9 in
You
the
have 9.
transportation program itself.
That's how you get that many done, because I was wondering how in the world you're getting that many done with such few vehicles, but you've increased your vehicles.
We've had some drivers that have had some very serious illness, and so it's been very difficult. We're using our IOC drivers, our intermittent on-call, at a high level, and are going to come up to probably middle of December when we will not be able to use them because they will have reached near their 1,000 hours. We have hired a former policeman that will be starting with us. He does not have a CDL.
But I was going to ask if they had to have CDLs.
We are going to train him, and hopefully we can get that very quickly.
On the CDL, do you have to have a commercial CDL?
Yes, with a passenger endorsement.
Okay.
How is the conversation going with Northeast Mental Health and anybody else that supplies transportation? You know, everybody's sitting out here with vehicles, but we're not coordinating.
They do a total different population of people, and they have, some of theirs is fixed route, where ours is, we're on call.
But I meant just conversing with them to say, we do this, you do that. Is there some way we can, you know, we may have the EMS that wants to get into that, you know, or maybe the sheriff's department wants to get into that, you know, so somewhere, how many transportation departments, and I've questioned that for many, many years, why we can't get together. We have 2 dispatchers over there at the judicial, right? Sheriff and police. I mean, sheriff and, you know, and the police department. Because one talks in English and one talks in English. So I don't know why transportation departments can't have one dispatcher. There must be some way, Linda, for 2, and there's a lot of vehicles in each one of those departments, mental health and in our department, Council on Aging. I just think there's some way to get some consolidation to save money, because there's a next thing you're going to need, you'll need another van. Driver's going to be the hard part. That is the hard part. That's like pilots in museums. You can get pilots anywhere, but you can't get mechanics, because that's a dying breed. So you've got all these people that are sick, and I imagine most of them are more mature. That's a word for old. We don't like to use that word old after a certain time in life. But I think there's some way that we need to be talking about consolidation. Public Works, 6 blocks down the road, Public Works here. There needs to be things done on consolidation so we can give better, what do you want to call it, to the public, because we have to be able to spread our money around. Has to be something. So, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, our information and assistance, that also is increased. It's actually increased dramatically. Part of that is due to the fact now that we have made a presence in every town in this county. So our outreach is done on a monthly basis. We have had another health insurance counselor has taken the training and is certified now to be a SHIC counselor. So we're seeing that we're averaging 259 a month. So far this year, we've done 5,690 units of service. That would be interviews or contacts with an individual. Do you have any questions about that?
No, and I think contact's good, you know. It's the same way as delivering the food. That's an asset, especially this time of year. You know, if somebody knocks on the door and nobody comes to the door, it saves some lives. So,
Our
Bob?
nutri- I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, huh?
Our nutrition program is continuing to increase also. And, you know, and part of this is we're an aging population, so this is going to be a natural thing. But another thing is due to the fact that we feel that we have a very good caterer in our nutrition program right now, which makes a huge difference. And we're averaging 286 meals per day. This is on a 9-month trend. So far, we've delivered 52,488 meals. We're very proud of our farmers market. The state allows each county so many. Many of the counties, people will take the vouchers and then don't go and redeem them. And we had 125 is what we're giving, and they were redeemed. So we're very happy with that.
Does the state pay for the vouchers, or does?
Yes.
They do. That's good.
Any questions?
Not I.
You've answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just one. Do you have anything coming up for the holidays? Any special programs like adopt an elderly or anything like that for the holidays?
For Thanksgiving, we canvass as many people as we can so that there's churches in the area that will deliver a meal to them on Thanksgiving. We're involved in that. Also at Christmas, we have Adopt a Senior for Thanksgiving also. So you can adopt them and adopt them for a week or a month, however long you would like to pay for their meals.
Okay.
We have a listing of those that are financially challenged and need that help, and we will give that to somebody that contacts us. Also, the same at Christmas. We have Adopt a Senior for Christmas. That's been absolutely fantastic. The VFW has adopted many, many veterans that we have. We have a huge, huge demand to adopt seniors at Christmas. We also do the senior stocking program, and for every homebound person, they get a Christmas stocking with things that they might use.
So if people want to get involved, then you just need to come by the Council on Aging office.
Well, right now, we have volunteers that will fill over 300 stockings. That will be coming up. And then we're going to have some that have some mental challenges from the school is going to come, and they're going to stuff Kleenex in a little stocking that we're going to take to some of the nursing homes.
Okay.
Because they've requested that they be involved in, and actually, we do have 3 individuals that play Santa Claus for us. And when we went to the nursing homes, residents were just thrilled. And so we're going to, this year, have the little stocking to give out.
Can I question your question? It sounded like you were looking for, if somebody wants to volunteer, do they come by your office, or can they just call and say, I'd like to volunteer?
Well, the volunteering is just to fill the stocking, or if they want to volunteer to adopt a senior. We have to be very careful.
Yes.
That we never put anybody in harm's way.
No, I meant the financials.
The financial.
Financial support to adopt a family or something.
Okay, very good.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes.
You need to come by Council on Aging to do that.
You can call us. We have a listing
Okay.
of what the individual might need.
We want to be a very giving society, but we got to watch what we give them.
That's
Yes.
right. And Leavenworth County has been very, very generous. They should be very proud of the residents for what they've done.
Okay, very good. Any more questions of Linda?
None for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Adult Community Corrections Quarterly Report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So just again, to get started, I've included kind of our schedule that that our personnel and our staff have participated in over the course of the last 3 months. We have been extremely busy. Again, our fiscal year starts July 1st, so we've been kind of getting into the swing of the new fiscal year for the last couple months. So that's why we've had a lot of trainings in the interstate compacts, as well as getting the quarterly reports and everything submitted to the commission, or to the commissioners, as well as to the Department of Corrections. So also starting October 1st, which is not in this fiscal quarter, but one of our programs, which is called the Senate Bill 123, which is our mandatory drug treatment program offered by the state of Kansas to pay for their treatment, has changed how they're going to be doing their invoices. In the past, the invoices would be prepared by the treatment provider and then provided to our agency for review and approval, and then we would send them off to the Kansas Sentencing Commission. But effective October 1st, they're going to be doing them all electronically to help save paper, and also to help increase the timeline turnaround for the treatment providers to get paid back for the services that they provided for the clients. So we will be able to monitor those online. So there has been a lot of trainings with that, a lot of policy and procedure changes. So that's kind of what a lot of our conference calls and our webinars have been over the last couple weeks, just to make sure that the entire state of Kansas is on the same page as what the Kansas Sentencing Commission is on. Corey and Jamie both went to Topeka and completed a field tactical training program that was offered through the state of Kansas through the parole department. That provides them safety and security when dealing with home visits, because we do go to our offenders' homes, with home visits and interactions outside of the secure buildings such as the Justice Center. So that'll provide them with the extra safety and security and precautions that they would need to interact with our clients out in the field. I've also spoke to the University of St. Mary's. I do this every fall, just as an introduction to what criminal justice is and the different levels of probation and parole and the court systems. So I've worked with Dr. Bonner through the University of St. Mary's, like I said, for about the last 4 years. So I had that lecture on the 20th of September. And then again, we've had our regular department head meetings and our lunch and learns. In the newspaper around the beginning of September, there was an article on TRIO, which is a education and employment training or program that's here in the community. We've reached out to them, and we're going to start utilizing them to help our offenders get GEDs and also have placement within the community for employments or specialized job services. Under our Department of Corrections, again, we started our fiscal year. We have submitted all of our quarterly reports, and then again, we had the new insurance invoicing system effective October 1st. For budget-wise, we are at 69% of our budget remaining, which is $207,425.28, and we are still at 99% of our behavioral health grant, which is $46,578.22. Again, as I always do, I always attach our average daily population for our office on what we supervise on an active basis, and we are getting back up to the 120s for active clients that we do supervise. So our numbers are increasing, which does kind of go back to a trend. It does kind of fluctuate about every 3 years. We've noticed that. So that chart is attached. And again, it breaks down the specific population. Corey has 48 clients. Jamie has 62 clients. I currently supervise 12 clients, and that is our active client population. And then we also have our inactives and our cases that we've transferred out. So we have about 222 clients that Leavenworth is responsible for. Over the last quarter, we have successfully completed 3 offenders. We have unsuccessfully completed, but they were not sent to the Department of Corrections, 4 offenders. We have revoked and sent them to the Department of Corrections, 6 offenders. We've had 30 cases sentenced to us from our Leavenworth court systems here, and we've accepted 10 cases from outside agencies. So again, we're starting to get those numbers increased across.
What's the outside agencies done for? What? we get them from outside agencies?
It is state policy that if the offender resides in our community, they are to be supervised by the community to which their community corrections is in. So if we have an offender that lives in Atchison, we transfer the case to Atchison.
Okay.
And so of those, there's 10 offenders that have lived in our community that have come from outside agencies. We do find a lot of those are also because of the VA population. We have a lot of offenders that go to treatment at the domiciliary and relocate to Leavenworth. So that's a large population of what we get for courtesy offenders. But we get them from Wyandotte County, Atchison, Reno County, across the state. So again, our employment numbers stay roughly about the same. We do have 46 offenders that are currently employed. We have 159 that are unemployed. However, 104 of those that are unemployed are considered inactive, which means they're involved in treatment, they're incarcerated, or they are pending documentation for like disability. So we do have 8 offenders that are currently receiving disability. We have 42 offenders that we are working with TRIO now, as well as our programs within our office to try to find employment. And currently we don't have any full-time students. Again, some of the other programs that we're kind of working on is we are reviewing our in-house programming with the Department of Corrections. Myself and my staff all completed MRT training, which is moral recognition training. It was offered through the U.S. Probation and Parole Department, through the Topeka Division, and through the Kansas City, Kansas Division. So we were down at the federal courthouse all week last week. So we're going to probably try to start looking at how we can implement that training involved into our office. And then again, we've kind of just welcomed in the new judge with our criminal docket. And as you can see, we have a lot of goals that we're also still working on. We're working on our in-house programming, which is our cognitive behavioral intervention programming. We just attended the MRT training. We still continue to work with MIR Incorporated to do all of our substance abuse assessments. In fact, he's in our office right now doing assessments for us. We still continue to set up lunch and learns and interact with agencies, new and old, throughout our community as well as within our region. We're still working with our program consultant about, again, doing audit procedures and getting the assistance of how to do effective audits. We still continue to work with the Sheriff's Department and the jail, collaborate with state parole. State parole is probably going to help us a lot with some of our in-house facilitations. Again, we're still working on the data collection over the last 10 years of supervised offenders to see why they keep coming back or who keeps coming back. And then again, just planning the holiday schedule, continue to do our weekly updates, working on policy and procedures, and individualized staff trainings. Any questions?
Seems like a lot of cases that you're responsible for.
Yes.
How often do you meet with these offenders?
It depends. What we do is an LSIR, which is a risk needs assessment, and that determines the level of interaction that we would have with the offender. Sometimes we can see them up to every week. Sometimes it'll only be 3 times a month, 2 times a month, or 1 time a month. We also count when we do those home visits, that is an interaction that we have with them. We try to do a lot more interactions out in the community just because of transportation issues for our clients. So we try to see them at their home or at treatment or at their employer to also help so that we don't have as many appointments inside of the office with the clients as well.
Time-wise, how long does it take per individual?
I would say on average a good conversation with an offender is about 25 to 30 minutes. Now, you have some of those that have a lot of fires that need to be put out, and you have some of those that are just maintaining and checking in and making sure everything's going well. So about 30 minutes would be an average, I would say.
Looking at the numbers at Jamie, she's at 62.
A lot of her interactions are with treatment providers while the offenders are in treatment. She does specialize in our Senate Bill 123 program, so all of her offenders, or I should say a majority of her offenders, are in the mandatory treatment program, which does have those extra requirements of having those individual conversations with providers.
That explains that then, yeah, okay.
However, those policies are changing, but it's going to be for her benefit,
For the better or for the
better
worse?
for her, yes.
Okay,
Anything?
thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm sure you got an acronym for, what'd you say, moral recognition training?
MRT. Mhm.
Okay. See. Who, you're trained, you received training on that, and who
Yes.
do you pass that training on to?
Well, right now, everybody in our agency, so Jamie, Corey, and myself are all nationally certified to do that. We are not certified to facilitate it to other individuals, so I couldn't train it to you, but I can perform and facilitate the training to our clients.
Okay.
So it would be more of
So it'd
kind of
be
like a
every client
teacher.
will have to go through
Yes.
some moral recognition or
Moral
training.
recognition, hopefully. I'm going to be meeting with Judge Gibbons to kind of educate him on what the program is, and hopefully we can start getting it as a court
That
order.
sounds like a good program.
Yeah.
It's a very intense program, I will have to admit. They do use it on all federal clients, so all federal probation and parole clients have to participate in this. And there are some that it takes 3 to 6 years to get them completed. I mean,
Is this something new, or is this?
I believe it was originally instituted in the Kansas district for the federal system in like 2012.
So it's relatively new.
It's not a newer program. A lot of the material shows examples from like 1990, but for this area, I believe that it's more new for us. So
Yeah, I think
When you're dealing at home, do you have any security problems at all?
we do not. I am looking at possibly purchasing bulletproof vests in order to collaborate with parole. That is one of their requirements. I have been working with the Sheriff's Department on a possible generous donation from another person that has offered to donate to his agency. However, at this point, we don't have bulletproof vests, but it's also, we don't go to offenders' homes that we predict there's going to be complications. We start home visits at 5 o'clock in the morning, so if my officers don't feel comfortable going into a certain area or a certain neighborhood or a certain person's home at that time, I give them the discretion to not go in
You
there.
use the prediction word. You never know.
You never know.
Never know.
That's also why we, again, offer the MRT training, just also to help them. We call it verbal judo. We give them as many verbal judo opportunities to be protected as possible.
Very good.
I
Okay.
have another one, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
No, I don't mind.
The 42 that are employable, is there any job training programs available to these? Because I'm sure they're lacking in skills.
And they are. We are going to be working a lot with that TRIO company to really kind of start focusing on the GED process, as well as if there's any additional education certificates that they can attain through like KCK to maybe help them become more marketable. We also do a lot of in-house training, such as that ODES that I went to and completed the national certification for that. So we do a lot of individualized one-on-one sessions with them on what's your likes, what's your dislikes, what's your employment history, and how can we find something to match into that. Our number over the last couple months has fluctuated there because a lot of our landscaping jobs or construction jobs have turned to kind of a halt. So, so that number has kind of gone up a little bit, but we are hoping to find maintainable and attainable employment for our clients, so it's not just seasonal.
But is there any programs through the state or anything that would help fund vocational training for some of these?
We have it written into our grant to help assist with some of those. We've just not had an offender that has shown enough desire to want to participate in that program. There are programs through the state, through the Department of Commerce, but our biggest problem would be transportation to those places that would have those trainings
And the
available.
initiative to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
I've got one more question if you could.
Sure.
Have you had any conversation with the workforce program?
I have not had a conversation with the workforce program here. I've had ones with the ones in Wyandotte County and Topeka, and we have been working with them a lot on vocational rehab programming that we have through the state of Kansas. That is kind of that program that they can use, especially if they have a little bit of a mental health or a learning disability. They can find specialized programming for employments that way.
Have you, have you tried with the local workforce program?
I tried about a year ago, and it was not successful. So I kind of went up the chain and went to the one in Topeka, which is kind of the regional overseer for this. And so I've kind of been doing a lot of my communication with them. There is a workforce representative also that was in some of the trainings that I was with. Her name is Kelly Martinez. She actually is employed through the Department of Corrections, so she's been my main contact as far as networking, as far as programming and stuff like that goes. We are looking at trying to collaborate with the parole side through the Topeka office to come and work with the parole inmates as well as ours on like a job club, so to speak, for options of networking and again trying to find that employment.
Okay.
My only question is, do you collect statistics or data that you then pass to the school system saying you didn't know about college, and that some of these BOCC operations pay much better than coming out of college because you don't have college debt? Is there something that you collect to pass back to the school systems? Because they have them for 12 years. And
there is statisticians that work with the Kansas Sentencing Commission that collect that data, and I would hope that they would share it to those individuals through the school systems. I do know that I have been asked to be on an educators advisory board committee through Washburn University to kind of look at the curriculum and criteria that is involved with the hiring of individuals within the corrections field. I'm on that committee with the director of KBI, the director of the, I guess it would be the Department of Corrections through Topeka, as well as a lot of the law enforcement agencies to try to see what programs are being taught in schools. I do think that that is one of the areas that we have discussed is if they don't get to college, what programs are being offered at a level through high school or even a vocational school that would help prevent individuals becoming violators of the law.
okay. Any more questions?
No, sir.
Sounds like a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item C, County Road 1 Land Use Plan. That would be Jeff and Crystal.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We have come to a conclusion on the study on the County Road 1, and as you can see on the map, the project area is 6 miles south of the city limits of Tonganoxie and 1.5 miles on both sides of County Road 1. Back in 2005, the county residents passed a sales tax to construct new roads in the county, and this was part of that funding. So around 2008, 2009, the road was constructed. At that time, a land use plan was recommended, but we never had any funding to do that. So after 10 years, the County Commission approved a request to do the land use study. So we contracted with a firm in Kansas City, Vireo, and they are here to give a formal presentation of all the findings, a more detailed presentation. But I would like to give you a little bit of background on what we found out and stuff like that. We, based on as part of the process, we had 4 public meetings, and there were 2 stakeholder meetings and then 2 public meetings. Based on those meetings, we were able to come up with 2 concepts. One was, it's concept A. It's on the right-hand side of the board. It has a lot of colors. Those are all commercial zoning, commercial land use. So it's the highest and best use. So what that means is that we can get more return on the investment. And concept B is, there's just two areas. There are industrial and commercial. It's small areas. And that's based on all the public input that we received. So today we are asking for direction.
Can we back up just a second? I had circled, what is the definition of stakeholder?
I don't know the definition, but it's basically people.
In accordance with your maps, not the, get out the dictionary. What are the stakeholders with those maps?
What we did, we included people who lived there, and then some professionals, some engineering professionals, and also a planning commission member. So we selected a group of people to study the the findings.
So B would be more people who live there, stakeholders.
Correct. That's all. The consultants, staff, everybody worked together, and that was the plan that was we come up with.
Okay. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to get that what the stakeholders means.
Today we're just asking for direction. We have one more step. Per statute, we have to go to City of Tonganoxie governing body and let them hear the findings, and then it will come back to the board for final approval. So we are here today just to get direction from the county commission. With that, I'll turn it over to our consultants. Stephen and Travis are here.
Good morning. My name is Travis Pendleton. I'm a city planner with Vireo. We're a consulting firm in Kansas City. And we work with your planning department and engage the community to develop the Leavenworth County Road land use analysis. And with me today is Steve Rhodes. Steve is a principal. He's a landscape architect with Vireo. So what I'm going to do today is go through just some background, show you the land use concepts, talk to you about how we engage the community and what we learned through that process. This is your county future land use map. County road, do you have a pointer? Is there a pointer? It's okay. There's that orangish area on the left side underneath where you see Tonganoxie, and then you see a yellow area that's the low density residential, and then it shows a potential growth area as an orangish blob going down towards the asterisk, which is at I-70. That is our part of our planning area. On the future land use map, there are no actual land use categories, and so that in that area where it says potential growth area, and so that's what we focused on. Our study area, as Jeff mentioned, is 18 square miles, very rural, really pretty. We know that the future Tonganoxie Business Park is going in. The I-70 interchange is there, and we know that there's been developer interest. And we really wanted to be sure that we heard what the public wanted for the project or for the area. Our process involved 3 steps. It began in the spring of this year, and now we're near the end of it. We looked at existing conditions and engaged the community. From that, we developed 2 future land use concepts as well as design guidance, in so much as what would that future land use look like on the ground if it were there. We shared that with the community. We also then, as in step 3, we revised those concepts and the design guidance and had more community engagement. One thing that we always do is look at the context. So we want to know what's happening in the region, what's happening locally, and so on. So for the region, this is a map that the Mid-America Regional Council, your regional planning organization, prepares, and it shows where growth is happening. So when you look at the center of the map, you see that that's Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, and there's starting to be population loss there going out into the future, as well as a little bit of some refilling. But most of the population gain is happening on the outside of those cities. Tonganoxie for Leavenworth is right here and is seeing some of that gain. Our region also has a vision to help guide planning. And it's all about being vibrant, connected, and green, which really means that you have a lot of choices in terms of how you're going to move from a transportation perspective. Your housing options, that people have healthier lifestyles, that we're looking at unique community characteristics. And we're thinking about equity, economy, and the environment. Locally, we have compiled a lot of data from your county's GIS database, so your geographic information systems. We have a lot of that data shown in the land use analysis document that you all have. What I'm going to go through here are just some of those maps and some of the findings from that. Whenever you're doing a land use analysis, we always look at the existing land use, but we also look at the zoning. And so what you see on the left is the zoning for the corridor. And I mentioned before, that's very pretty. It's also very rural residential, and that's what zoning you have. That darker green in the top is your minimum 2.5 acres per residential unit zoning, and then minimum 5 acres for residential development going south. The only exceptions are where the business park is, and then at the very bottom down here, at K32 and Corridor 1, or excuse me, County Road 1, you have some business. Commercial zoning. One of the big factors with the planning area is that the parcels and the acreages are very, very large. So a lot of the parcel acreages that you see on the right, you see a lot of that dark brown color. Those are parcels that are 20 plus acres. The Mid-America Regional Council also provides natural resource data, so they have mapped the region's natural resources. So I said the corridor is really pretty, and it is, and a lot of that is because there's not a lot of development there. What you see in the yellow is what would be called cultivated or farmed. When we shared that at the public, people said that that's pasture. So you see just a lot of, there's not a lot of development out there now. The other map to the right is showing infrastructure. You know, infrastructure supports development. You're usually looking for water and sewer. This is a rural area, so you have more septic. And what, in terms of utilities, we have, you know, your I-70. There are some local streets that are paved, but then you see gas and power lines rather than water and sewer, or in addition to. Leavenworth County is growing and has been growing for a while. This is a map of showing the comparison between 2000 and 2010 from the census. So where you see the darker colors, that's where you see more population growth. What I just circled here, this is our planning area. There's not a lot of growth there, based on the last two censuses. Most of it is closer to Leavenworth and Lansing. Regardless, Tonganoxie and Basehor are two of the fastest growing communities in the state of Kansas. So when you're looking at this map here, Leavenworth County Road 1 is down here in this light green color. Linwood, as a comparable community, is just south of that, and excuse me, not south, but on the graph, it's yellow. And then Tonganoxie and Basehor, you see Tonganoxie in red and Basehor in blue. And they're projected to grow into the future. It's important to look at your community not only in terms of how many people there are, but also what their generations are. This is a graph of the generations that are living in Leavenworth County right now. The smallest group are the matures, but you have about equal percentages of what you might call baby boomers in the red color, Generation X, which is my generation, in the blue, millennials in yellow, and then the generation after them in the pink, which are the Generation Z. And the thing about those generations is that as we age, we have different needs, and housing is one of the needs that we have that begins to be a little bit different. So when you're older, sometimes you can live in a house on many acres, and then as you get older, sometimes you can't maintain that. Maybe you need something else. Also, younger generations aren't able to always afford many acres and a house there. So as a region, we look at those housing options and try to be considerate of that. We had 2 community surveys during the project. This was the first one. We had 162 respondents, and I want to note that for our public meetings, we sent postcards to everyone within all the property owners and other stakeholders within our project boundaries. And those invitations had the survey link on it. And then we promoted it after our public meetings. So out of that, we had 162 respondents. Most of them were property owners or people who self-described as being a resident of the area. The first thing that we asked them was, if you could think about this area in 10 years, what word or phrase would you use? And they use rural and country. I mean, as I said, it's really pretty, and we heard that a lot as we talk with our community. In terms of land development challenges, the two that came up the most, or that got the most feedback, were impacts to homes and businesses, if you were to do development, and then access to water and sewer lines, as well as farmland being a challenge. But the opportunities had to do with the rural residential character in the area, open space, and then the interchange. We also asked generally what are the most important types of development to see within the corridor. The top three had to do with parks and open spaces, residential, and then a mix of uses at one location. At our May public open house, that survey that I just went through was provided to people, and they were able to share their feedback. But we also asked them to just look at a blank map of the corridor. It was our base map without any land uses on it, and talk to us about what challenges and opportunities were in the corridor and where they were located. So when you look at this map here that I'm circling on your left, that's the challenges and opportunities map. All of the pink are the challenges and the yellow are opportunities. We have 3 versions of this map because we had 3 copies of it available and people put their feedback on it that way. The map on the far end of the screen, we asked people those same land uses that I went through, we asked them where in the corridor would you like to put those, and they put their, we had these small circular cutouts, and they were able to put those cutouts on the map with their notes and their thoughts. And then a copy of the postcard is up at the top. We sent the postcard, we put the public meeting notice on Facebook, and then there was a press release sent for it. From that public meeting, we were able to develop some draft concepts of what the land uses could look like and where they might be within the corridor. We shared that with our stakeholder committee in July. After that, we refined that a bit, and we met with them again in September and had a public open house in September to share all of that with the public. We had another opinion survey during that time. We had about half as many respondents. Most of them still describe themselves as being property owners or residents, which is good. And then we asked them another version of that land use question, which is not just what general land use, but what specific types, because by this point we had land use definitions, were more specific about the question. And so again, agriculture or preserve, open space were the 2 most important land uses that people selected in terms of specific type, followed by residential and mixed use. So we're still pretty consistent. But the residential is an emphasis on rural residential rather than residential of different densities in terms of the feedback that we got. We asked several questions. This is one of the questions that we asked in that survey, and it was about generating economic development interest in the corridor. Looking at it, I would say we're kind of split, with more people thinking that, or feeling that generating economic development interest in the corridor was somewhat too very important. So we look at the data, and we talk to the community members, but we also do what we call listening to the landscape, which is we begin to dig in a little bit about what you can do. And so one of the things that we do with GIS is we do a suitability analysis. And so that takes in the consideration of your transportation routes, your utility lines, your topography, your floodplain, your wooded areas, and then best practices when you're thinking about development. And that gets us to a map that looks like this. When you're seeing this area, we have the utilities as overall as a base, but this orange right here, these are areas where the slopes are at least 10 to 25%. The ones that are in red are 25% or more. When you have steep slopes, that's something that you typically want to avoid in terms of development. You probably are going to want to preserve that. And so where you see the red, we're saying to please not develop in that area to avoid that. And if you want to develop in the orange areas, for example, that you would do a clustered style development, and y'all know what clustered development is, where you're not developing on your whole entire parcel if you have steep slopes, that you're clustering or grouping your buildings together, you're parking, that type of thing. Moving quickly to goals and strategies. We have a few goals. They're numbered, but they're not in an order per se. One of the goals that we have is to provide new development that respects the streams, the floodplains, areas, and steep topography, as well as sensitive soil conditions. We have in your report, there's an analysis of the soils and our findings. The soils seem to be such that they may need to have something added to them to make them more stable, which impacts development, which also affects how much density you can ultimately have in an area. So with that in mind, you want to provide stream buffers, think about open space also as a buffer, and think about clustered zoning techniques. as well as development techniques. Another goal is to develop contiguously, which is development adjacent to existing development or to other development, and that you pair that with where you have roads, where you have public utilities. We know that you're going forward with your master planning efforts for your utilities, so you want to pair your land use with that. And make sure that you have a reasonable opportunity to connect where utilities are being extended. Third goal is to enhance the corridor's scenic and rural residential character, looking at it as an asset, thinking about your utility lines so that where you can, those utility lines in the future, if the area were to develop, that they are buried rather than having a line of utility poles running down your corridor and in your activity centers, as well as thinking about how to buffer single-family residential uses from uses that are not in that category. And then also being sensitive to your soils. Fourth goal is to concentrate commercial and industrial or a mix of uses at targeted activity centers. Activity centers are places where you would find your jobs, entertainment, really a lot of activity happening rather than in a residential neighborhood. There could be differing scales of activity centers. A community scale activity center might be something that it's not, it's drawing from other cities to this area, rather than a neighborhood scale activity center, which is not doing that so much. So a comparison would be if you had a community scale activity center, that would be at County Road 1 and 2440 or I-70. A neighborhood scale would be somewhere that's not those areas. So that could be on your far south side where you have commercial zoning right now, off of K32 and Corridor 1. So it's a smaller area. The last goal is generating economic development, combining that, thinking about economic development, but thinking about your investment in agriculture. We had a lot of feedback about the animal health corridor and can we incorporate health in that. We know regionally we're looking at health and how to incorporate that in your economic development goals, as well as thinking about how to master plan any of your activity centers so that you're more in control of what that development looks like, how big it is, et cetera. Looking at trails and greenways, having alternative ways to get around in a development as your community grows is proven to be helpful. And so if you do analysis on the quality of your streams, whether or not you can do trails and greenways, that's important to do. And so we included that as a strategy to help generate economic development, as well as marketing, having a marketing approach and an actual economic development strategy. Jeff mentioned that we have 2 future land use concepts. This is concept A on your left. Concept A is, we would call that an optimistic scenario. Concept B is more conservative. Concept B is pretty much what you can do with your existing zoning, except for this 2440 Honey Creek Road area where we've done some commercial and added some cluster commercial, and down here at I-70 where you have industrial and a mixed use. We used a tool that the Mid-America Regional makes available, which is called Envision Tomorrow. What it does is it helps us be able to compare and understand the impact of the concepts that we're drawing. So it gives us data on, in this case, people, households, school-age children, for example. So it compares the existing to concept A and concept B. What you see in orange are the people, the lighter orange, the households, and the yellow, school-age children. So there's a lot more going on in concept A, so you see higher numbers there. One thing that we always like to do is to do at least some kind of projection. This is a straight line growth projection to see how long it's going to take if you're getting those types of numbers. And so when you look at this graph and you see that lower arcing black line, that is the growth rate for County Road 1 right now, our study area. That growth rate's about 5%. That is looking at growth from in the last 20 years of census, your average growth. The purple colored line or the light colored line on screen is the growth for Tonganoxie. That is 3.5 annual growth, looking at that same period. But Tonganoxie's been growing since the 30s. So we feel pretty good about those projections. Something else that we look at is the housing mix. Again, concept A has more going on, not just in terms of where the uses are, but also the types of residential. So you have a more diversified housing mix than in concept B. It's also more diverse than what's available now. We look at the employment mix also. Start to see a little bit more of a difference in concept A versus existing, and more in concept B. Concept B has more industrial, so you see a higher industrial component in that employment mix. We looked at the jobs to housing balance. Ideal is 0.75 to 1.5. When you're over that, you're thinking you have more jobs than housing, and that means that you are drawing people in to the area. We know from previous studies that, I think your 2006 economic development study for I-70 talked about there being more growth in terms of property and sales tax, but not from a residential or population perspective. This is all of the growth together. It's showing population. In the lighter color, the medium color there are the housing units, and then the purple are the jobs. Envision Tomorrow also lets us put in your sales tax figures and get an idea of how much tax is being generated on an acre basis. In both concepts, there's more non-residential, so you're seeing greater sales tax revenue being generated than from property tax. Something else that was important to do for the project is to come up with design guidance so that we have an understanding of what these land uses might look like on the ground. So the way that we did that is we did a visual preference exercise with our stakeholder committee and with the public at the last public meeting. We showed different categories of land use, and then we broke those categories down in terms of the different ways that they might look. What I want to point out to you is that the agri-hood and the agribusiness came up during our public meeting, so we also tested those out to see what people thought about those. But in the single-family section, we have a lot of the dots on this hard-to-read word right here, which says rural residential. We also have the most dots on industrial, but they're smaller and larger-scale industrial in terms of where people put their dots. And also, we had a lot of dots on the commercial. And there's different types of commercial. So you have your retail, your hotel, your office, et cetera. The last component was to come up with design guidance in terms of actual guidelines. So this is an area where there's not a lot of development right now. And if there is in the future, it's probably best for it to be tighter and more compact rather than spreading out all over the corridor. So we have provided design guidance that's all about being compatible with what's there now, being compact, as well as being accessible. And so there are a half a dozen different categories of that guidance. So you have your buildings and lots, open space, circulation, and so on. These guidelines that are in the land use analysis are to supplement the SDD guideline regulations that you have right now. And the map for that area is to your left, or excuse me, to your right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about what we learned at Planning Commission and moving forward.
We did take this to the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago, and they recommended Concept A, which is the highest and best use plan. Their vote was like 6-1. Two of the planning commissioners were absent. So the next step is to get some direction from you all, and then it will go to the City of Tonganoxie City Council on November 19th, and then it will come back to us. So right now we have, you have three options. One is do nothing. The second option is to recommend the Concept B, and the third option is Concept A, which is the highest and best use.
All of a sudden, Jeff's from the south. He said, y'all. Very good, Jeff.
Well, we are dealing with the South
Yeah, that's
project.
the south. That's good, Jeff. Yeah, that's good, Doug. I'm going to let you guys go first because I want to ask what everybody wants for lunch.
Stranger Church at the Bowling Grange.
Well, but we'll still be talking on this.
Okay.
I've got a lot of questions.
I do too.
So,
But I think this is going to go to the Tonganoxie City Council.
Correct.
I believe. And did your office or did any of us reach out to Tonganoxie about their urban growth management?
Yes, they were included in all the meetings. I mean, they came to all the public meetings.
On the non-Tonganoxie itself, it's urban growth management area.
We did send them the agreement that.
Same information that
same
was sent to the
information.
other cities was also sent. to
Okay.
them.
I know Lansing is working on theirs and Baser is
Baser
working on
is.
theirs. I didn't know if Tonganoxie was working on
I
theirs.
haven't heard from them, but I can check.
Okay. And I thought it was interesting that education and healthcare industry employ most of the residents of Leavenworth County. Did you get that on that one page?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we need a school and a hospital out there or something.
Do you want to go next, Bob?
I'm all right with letting you go next.
How much money have we spent down there, staff? 18 million?
Probably north of that when you add interest.
It's over 20, I believe.
Over 20. That's a lot of millions. I'm here for the whole county. The whole county. I looked at reinvestment industrial, only changes when it's sold if we go with option 4. There's an option 4. Wasn't presented here, and I could have interrupted you on every, you were doing what you're assigned to do, but as each one of these charts came up, I said, oh my. All I could say was, oh my. That's the reason I asked for what's the definition of stakeholder. We've spent over $20 million for stakeholders. That's not Baser. That's Tonganoxie and South. I don't know how much of the 76,000 are on the new statistics, 80,000. People are flipping a coin. Let's take out 15,000, and I'm being generous. That leaves a heck of a lot of people that are major stakeholders at $20 million. I looked at A and B. One is for residential stakeholders. Thank you, we got a road. Thank you, we got our ingress to the interstate. And then I look at the rest of us and say, what did we get? Did we get anything? No, we didn't get anything. On A and B, we're not getting a thing. Not getting a thing. The rest of us, stakeholders, the 65,000 or 70,000 of us, we're not getting anything. We're getting green space. We're getting population growth. There's no population growth there right now. Baser is exceeding Tonganoxie. And Tonganoxie and Baser, as a development area, that's fine for residential. But we spent $20 million on getting some return. And I hope there isn't anybody that doesn't understand that. We have to get some return. How much did we pay these individuals?
Close to 60.
60,000? That's a good deal. That's one of the best deals the Leavenworth County or city have gotten. Thank you very much for that.
But if we would have did it when it should have been done, it would have been a lot less, because it would have been done 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
But you wouldn't be sitting there.
Yeah, that's true. But I
Might
looked
be
at,
sitting here, but wouldn't be dealing with this.
I looked at the Green Road, the survey, each one of those was totally, what is it for the people living there? There's nobody living there right now, is there? Hardly.
There are about 500, no, it's like 571, something like that. 571 people.
People
that live-
living there?
Yeah.
Well, I went down the road and I counted the amount of houses, and I don't know what I came up with, just on one, and I don't know, it was 12 or 16 houses. Now, that was down to I-70. I didn't go south of there.
This covers beyond that, though.
Yes, I know that.
The landowners.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, that's probably 500 people.
But the landowners themselves, see, my thought has always been, heavy industrial. It's easy to go heavy industrial back down the line. But if you go residential and you want to go up the line, boy, that's not easy. Because I got my park, I got my school, I got my hospital, I got my green space where my kids can play. But wait, is that what we spent $20 million for? I don't think so. We spent $20 million for revenue income for Leavenworth County. I don't know. I don't want you to think I'm picking on you, because we're part of the master race. You know you got a gap in your teeth. You're the master race. Don't ever forget that. I passed that out the other day, and the lady said, you know, I didn't think of that. I'm going to start passing that around. So I don't like A. I don't like B. I don't like leave it like it is. I think it's unfair to the rest of the taxpayers of Leavenworth County to say, we're going to let you have a park down there. How many acres is down there? How many acres does that include? Now, you were what, a mile either side or a half mile?
Mile and a half.
Mile and a half.
Mile and a half. That's a lot of space. Just roughly. I know it's a hard figure. Let's just say that's a heck of a lot of acres, okay?
Yeah, it's like a lot.
We'll make it easy. We'll make this difficult.
The
5,000
the exact wording that the voters passed was construction of the supporting road system for a new interchange in Leavenworth County on the Kansas Turnpike for economic development to help raise the property tax base.
Economic development.
Didn't say where it was going to be at, it just said it was going to be on the Kansas Turnpike.
But economic development, and people may think that a house is economic development. It isn't. It is not economic development. So I'm not for either one of those plans. I think it's unfair to the other 65, 70,000 people. But, you know, we do things that are unfair to the populace all the time anyway, so does that really matter? It does to me. It totally matters to me, and I think that it would be not the thing to do. I could go back through every one of your charts and see where stakeholders were residential. And they weren't most of the stakeholders in that mile and a half, were they? They were?
Yes.
Okay, so that does create a conflict of interest. I was thinking they were coming in from Noxie North, Baser, people having inputs.
No, sir.
Anybody?
It was
Strictly within that mile and a half.
And then there was planning commissioner. We had people from the school district.
So 501 people, is what you're saying?
Sorry?
501 people live in that area?
571.
I think it's 571.
Let's round it off to 1,000.
You can.
1,000 people are going to tell 79,000 people what they're going to do to get some economic return. And I understand where they're coming from. I've looked at a lot of houses out there. They're nice.
How's agriculture going to get any economic development? We can't even get roads.
We can't get roads. Have we done good on roads?
I think so.
Right.
I think we can do a lot better.
We haven't done anything on roads this year.
You talking about you and I?
Yeah.
Well, talk about Mr. I've got 5 miles of paved this year.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Dang right. I'm taking care of Lansing and Leavenworth. But, no, I'm looking at the whole county. I
think
cannot.
We all look at the whole county.
Well, if you go with A or B, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to one opinion, if I could have two, couldn't I, David? But I'm looking at it, I have an opinion that does not benefit Leavenworth County. Now,
But there's they're only giving us certain opinions. I mean, A and B,
Yeah.
or leave it as is.
Yeah, and that's what they gave us.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I don't want either one. There is a fourth one, and to me, the fourth one is we rezone it all to heavy industrial. It doesn't affect anybody. No, ma'am, doesn't affect anybody. Only when you sell your property is that affected. It doesn't get upgraded to taxing, nothing. It's just been rezoned, and it stays at that rezoning until it's sold off to somebody who wants to put industrial, or maybe they've gone before the planning board and they wanted light industrial, or they wanted commercial. Then it changes. Would you nod your head again so everybody can see that? Thank you, Joe. So it doesn't change the classification of who's living there now or what. So I'd like to see it rezoned heavy industrial. I don't want to leave it like it is. It hadn't gone anywhere for how many years? Unbelievable. And in those directions.
Longer than I've been there.
Yep.
It's had a moratorium on it.
Right.
Yeah, a moratorium. I love moratoriums. I'm going to have some down in Florida. But my opinion is the whole thing, whether it's a half mile, a mile, I don't like the mile and a half, needs to be one zoning and none of the three concepts that have been presented. So that's my opinion. And where it goes from there, I don't know.
So what happens to the moratorium under your scenario?
It's removed.
Okay.
Or it's, you call the
Okay,
moratorium now.
and then the guy that's a farmer there, he wants to put up a building.
Mm-hmm.
He's still able to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
still able to do that.
The current property owner can do whatever they want with it until it's sold.
That's right. Once they sell it, it stays under the current
But
regulation.
what if somebody buys that property and wants to continue it to be agriculture?
Stays
Does it not-
agriculture.
It
Stays what it
so
is.
The new owner has the choice to take it to the next level.
That's right.
Okay.
So, that's where I'm at. And you gave me a chance to go before you. So, we'll back up now, and it's your chance to discuss.
Well, this is not going to be very popular, but you want heavy industry. We've had a heavy industry come into that area down there.
Mm-hmm. But not properly, did they?
No, not properly. And it was thrown out. How soon do you think that one of these heavy industries is going to go down there?
Oh, never.
That's right.
They've been insulted because of outside inputs,
Right.
because of the governor, and anybody that shook their head, excuse me, Mike, anybody that shook their head, yeah, that's a good idea, and then when they had the meeting, it wasn't a good idea.
And that's why I let you go first, because I had a feeling that, knowing you as well as I do, and that's exactly why.
Yep.
And it's not gonna happen.
Nope.
Not in your and my lifetime.
Well, I don't know, what is the CCA, what's that considered? Cereal ingredients.
Well, I thought you meant the private correction.
That's what I let you.
Probably light,
Yeah, not
I
CCA.
know.
What's that got?
Probably
to do
light
with-
Cereal ingredients is considered
light industrial.
Light industrial,
yes.
say,
No,
we'll get some of those.
right.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna get heavy industry.
No, he
Not
can't-
in our lifetime.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
Well, you're older than I am.
Why'd you say that for? But,
Okay, you're not older.
and we might get somebody come in that would want that. There might be. But you can always zone down, or rezone down. But you cannot rezone up without massive situations and problems. So, it's simple to say, and some of the light industrial might be capable of being in heavy industrial. There are situations where, and I looked at the Leavenworth thing a long time ago because they wanted me to rezone something, which I did. And another guy had to rezone.
Did we get more money out of you?
No, they're getting enough. So, it's, as I say, it's much easier to go down, and it can even be built into the, without making a lot of problems. But going up, you have somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to put a heavy industrial, oh man. No, most people haven't gone through that. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what it's like to rezone. It's not living in la la land to rezone, and businesses don't want that. They do not want to have to come in and do the utilities and do, that's why we gave $5 million down there at Tonganoxie, so they could get some land ready. So my opinion is none of the three options, do a fourth option, and have it drawn up that we do, we can come up with a half mile, the mile, ever what the thought process is. A mile and a half, I think that's pretty wide, but I wouldn't have a problem with that, of making it heavy industrial. And then when it's sold off as property, then it has to be zoned for that property, or it's still agricultural, or it's still, I have a home there on 2.5 acres, or 5 acres, or 10 acres. But once it goes out to the industry, then it is heavy, light, commercial, and that's much easier to get through a planning board than it is the other direction. So that is my thought on it. It's just 1 out of 3. Pretty soon it'd be 1 out of 5 and 1 out of 7. So that's my thought. So I guess it'd be a motion, what, to deny the...
I didn't think we were voting on this today.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I thought
Well,
it was
the
gonna,
next thing
it was
that-
gonna go to Tonganoxie City
Well,
Council and
okay,
then come back to
but-
us.
Yeah,
Is that correct, Jeff? I thought,
yeah, it goes to Tonganoxie and they meet and do their thing or what their thing is. And it'll come back, well, I like A or I like B because...
Well, you just gave him a fourth option.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a city council member here, I'm sure he'll take that information back. If not, I will take it to him.
Or we could add that to what's going to, as a motion, we could do that, add that as a motion that we're looking at a fourth option. We don't know what it is now, but Mr. Klemp dissertated this good, bad, or indifferent, or classified as hogwash, or what you want to classify it as. But I think it would be poor to ignore 79,000 people if that's going to be the next figure. But
I think it's 4 too.
yep. So I think that needs to be passed on to them. We don't have to do a motion on that, but that needs to be passed on when you give your brief, that there may be a fifth thought out there, but it can't be, I was going to ask, how many special use permits have we passed out since that has been part of the,
On County Road 1?
on the moratorium?
Not very many.
Yeah, okay. It said a moratorium of all building permits, subdivision developments, entrance permits, lot and track splits, rezoning, and special use permits was enacted at such time. that
Then
the
a couple
land-
barns built, and I
Yeah.
think that's about it.
The moratorium is only for a limited area. It's only 2 miles south of Tonganoxie city limits, so
Right.
it's limited.
But we haven't issued a, somebody hadn't come in and applied, said, hey, I want to do this. And you've said, no, you can't do that, but you can do it by special use permit. We have not offered anybody a special use permit, have
I think we did, probably like 5 years ago, we had one special use permit that went through. It was a construction company, if I recall.
That probably is going to pay back that 20 million real fast, isn't it?
Not so.
No. So that is what I would like to see done. If the rest of the board goes along with that. That's what we'll do if they don't. So that's my thought, okay? Yes, sir. You look like you want.
Well, I just, when we are done with the conversation, we are required to give the city 20 days notice before you take any action. It would probably be helpful to the city to know what that action might be. Not that you need to pick one of these, but that you do intend to move forward with something. And that way they can, so it would probably be good to get a consensus if the rest of you would support Commissioner Klemp adding the fourth option. I think there are some challenges with that. Before we rezone, we have to go through certain studies that justify that per statute. I've had that conversation with the county councilor. We've completed all those necessary steps for concept A or concept B. We have not done that for concept, I guess would be C, that you're proposing today. So if that's going to be the board's desire, I think that's going to start a little bit of a process over again that requires some meetings with the Planning and Zoning Commission and some more public meetings before we can rezone. That's just required. We've met that with the concept A or concept B. We did the public engagement. We hired a firm to come in and do this. I think we came up with a very good option as far as A or B. Excuse me. And everybody's aware of that. To throw another option on at this point will delay the process. Just wanted to let you
Yeah,
know.
but I don't think that District 1 and District 2 were in attendance at those meetings. Now, if Tonganoxie wants to pay for that, and they want to do that, they can annex to me, to annex the whole goddamn thing. And they can do whatever they want to do. But I don't think they're ready for that. And I don't think I'm ready to tell the rest of the county that I don't care about you. We've spent $20 million, and don't you think those people don't talk about, well, we gave them the interchange. Well, we did this, we did that. And I can look out there and I can see a bunch of faces that have, in this group, that have told me that.
That's why the South needs more representation.
Well, you're not going to get more representation because you don't have the population. It's going to go to Leavenworth. If you don't understand that.
Well, I understand it.
Yeah. So, and the next one will be what, 12 years away? So, but.
So is it the
So what do you
board's-
recommend?
I recommend that you send this down to the city of Tonganoxie to give them their 20-day notification. And that it be one of the three concepts that's been discussed. Leave it alone, concept A or concept B. That's my recommendation, because that's what staff has prepared. That's what the Planning and Zoning Commission has considered. If we want to add the fourth concept that was discussed here today, I think you're starting the process over for that concept.
Okay.
So, and again, the highest and best use is what we're supposed to do when we are conducting zoning and planning. Concept A is the highest and best use proposal. That's why the Planning and Zoning Commission supported it and approved it.
Should have started out, we have spent $20 million. Under that aspect, what is the best resolution to getting some kind of return on their money, and it wouldn't have been A or it wouldn't have been B?
There were a lot of other things that were taken into consideration, I think, as you saw in the proposal, besides just the zoning, and that's the development guidelines. They took into consideration the slope of the ground so that you don't have construction in an area that has a high slope. You can drive around the county and see where people have infilled in an area that probably should have never been built. This addresses some of that. It addresses when the development happens, how dense it would be. So I think it's a lot more than just the rezoning. And that's why I think, again, I support presenting what has been discussed and what has been considered, what has been paid for. I understand your frustration and also your suggestion.
No, I'm not
I think
frustrated.
10 years ago, that probably would have been the better approach rather than just leave
Pat
it.
Reardon used to say, please do not speak for me. I'm not
Yeah.
upset, I'm not
Okay.
emotional.
Well, I
I'm
think-
concerned with good government.
I think
It's
10
what
years
it's always
ago,
been.
when we did when we did the interchange, that probably would have been the best approach, just to do that. And then while we were waiting for something like this to happen, and maybe it would have got done.
But the state said they wanted something else developed. They weren't just going to go along with putting the interchange in. You know, we had to bow down and do whatever. So Lawrence can have 4 or 5, and Wyandotte can have, I don't know, maybe we can't even get 1. Did we need 1? Not if we're not going to use it. We didn't need 1.
Yep.
And I'm not, so we could just say, we're passing this down for you to look at, and we disapprove of it. Because we're wanting to look at other options.
Well, how much environmental study would have to be done if you all of a sudden said this is going to be heavy industry? That would start the process over again, probably.
Mr. Chairman, members of
On
the commission,
environmental.
I'd simply like to state, regardless of whatever policy decision you make, and that is your role, is to make the policy decisions, there will be necessary steps with respect to zoning, environmental studies. The Corps of Engineers may be involved. So there will be technical aspects that have to be addressed to implement the policy that you choose. So I think that, if I could add, that's the stage you're at now. As far as how to make that policy become real, that follows after the adoption of it.
Well, I think that's a good legal thought. But I think it's more, you want to remove this camera thing? Yeah, just turn it off. The light isn't off. I can
Go
get
to
a
the
gun
light.
and shoot it out if you want me to, but somewhere. There we go, thank you. Now I can see the world. No, now it's still on.
And come back on.
In rezoning, you're not going to have anybody coming in wanting you to do a test on anything until you get a person that comes in and says, I want to put in this, and that's when you'll get into environmental. They're not going to make you do the whole thing. Until that piece of land is sold, I hate to bring logic into life again, but there's nothing required with rezoning. So back to the original question, you're talking about, well, let's put it, pass it down that we're this and this and this, and we don't agree with it. We like another option. It alleviates them of a lot of pressure, because they'll have a lot of pressure on, is that A on your right side?
This is A.
That's A. They'll have a lot of pressure with B, a lot of pressure, because it's a nice environment down there now. But do we really think, and that includes staff, do we really think it's fair to the rest of the county to basically keep it zoned residential? I don't. No, because there's not the really massive residential down there now. Baser, I don't think they want any. They just want homes. So.
Well, I know Vaser doesn't want an industrial park.
No, that's true. Now.
I've been contacted by a landowner down there that is considering putting an industrial park in, and I thought, well, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. Now, Lansing, they've stated they would be interested, but look where they're wanting to put it. It's not a bad place yet.
Yeah.
It's off of McIntyre. So that's not a bad place, and they do have a park down there anyway.
Yes, they do.
So.
But it's still not full.
Yeah. So I would like to see something passed down that I don't like the idea. I don't know if the other two want to say that, but it doesn't really involve anything. If we don't like the idea, they might get an indication that there's some concern that we're, now the one thing we can do, we can wait till after the 15th now. Wait till after the 15th and in January, I'll be gone. So we can do that. It's already been stated. Well, on some things, we want to wait till after, and that's good. So
15th.
we're here till the 15th of January now. Did you know
No,
that?
it's the 8th.
No, God, no. I just got clerk. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah,
Didn't we agree to have this done by the end of the year?
yeah, we did.
Well, by the end of the year, have what done?
This,
Yes,
the land use study done,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
I think it's done. I don't like it.
okay?
So, and I don't have it. Never mind. I won't say that. So.
But if you have the intention of taking any action, we do need to send it to Tonganoxie for 20-day. They have 20 days by statute. So if you're going to take some action, I need to send something down there. If the board could come to a consensus what they would like for us to send down there, that would be, I think, helpful to everybody involved.
If we're not going to accept those or leave it as it is,
You don't have to send anything down there.
no, we've been being penalized for a long time, leaving it as it is. But to send either one of these options down and have them go into great study so they maybe can come back with population that says, and we don't have enough space here, we'll hold it down at the community center because people want to 500 and ever what it was.
So is it-
I upped it to 1,000 people.
Is it the
so.
consensus of the board that none of these options are, neither option A or B is acceptable, and that we will go back to the drawing board and look at the industrial park, or industrial zoning for a half mile on either side or
Yeah,
whatever?
that's my,
Is that the rest of the board's consensus?
okay. How about you, Douglas? There's
No,
two.
I
No.
want to get this done by the end of the year.
This here done up there,
Something in place by the end of the year.
which it's just done.
Well, we haven't voted on it, and we're in, City of Tonga hasn't kicked anything back to us
Okay.
yet.
Now,
They've
when-
been
when do
involved,
they
they
have-
have been involved with
When do they
this.
have their meeting?
Next Monday,
19th?
When?
next
19th?
Monday.
They're gonna be able to make a decision, or are they gonna hold off?
They have 20 days by statute. If they may, there's no really decision, it's
Okay.
just their opportunity to review
What
it and
is the
provide
20th day?
comment.
Where's that fall into us?
It'd be 20 days from the day we send them notice, so 20 days from today,
It'll
or,
still be in November.
but again, if you're not approving A, B, then we don't need to send them anything.
Okay, I don't wanna approve A or B. I don't wanna waste Tonganoxie's time, because that is not even, fair to the rest of the county.
So leaving it as is then the approach that we're taking today.
No. I want to make something by the end of the year that will have to
We
go
do
through
not-
planning and zoning.
we do
and-
not have
and
time.
dissertation and law and this and this and this and this.
We do not have time to complete a study of converting that to industrial by the end of the year, simply
Okay.
because it has to go to
It
Planning and
doesn't
Zoning
matter.
Commission.
The next group, you
90
got
days.
an intelligent group of people coming in. They
Okay.
can handle that. I'm just saying, neither one of these serve Leavenworth County.
What would the cost be to do another study for heavy
We don't have to do
industrial?
another study. That's ridiculous. Look where we got doing a study. Everybody wants to do a study. If
What
you're-
what if environmental would not support heavy industry out there?
It would depend on the acreage that's being sold. I'm gonna buy 50 acres and I wanna put in a chicken plant. Then, and I gotta go through planning, I gotta go through everything. Well, I know it's industrial, heavy industrial, and I gotta go through everything that is required, and planning board comes up with what their decision is. Let's say they say yes. Now, EPA, everybody's gonna get involved now. Where's the flow going? Where's the water coming from? Where's the electricity coming from? That's when it happens with that piece of land that's sold. It doesn't happen before. EPA and all the rest of them do not get involved until that land is sold. And that's when you get to, going in there looking for arrowheads and,
But if you sell a piece of property that's zoned heavy industrial, and then it turns out you can't have it heavy industrial because
Well,
it
then you
doesn't pass
bet.
environmentals.
okay, and that is item one, that individual buying that piece of land better have researched, and in his contract says, if it does not pass, the sale does not go through. It's a simple process.
Then we'd be sitting with a whole bunch of heavy industrial zone property that we can't have heavy industrial.
Well, we can just, let's just remove it and say it's all homes on acreage of 2.5. Let's just make it easy for, and the people are going to come in and say, hey, we don't want 2.5. I didn't buy 10 acres for that reason. I wanted to have peace and in the valley and all this and that. So I'm saying that these two, and I think it was just a consensus, do not apply. Now we need to take the next step, and that eliminates the 20 days for them having to reply, because they're not going to come back with an answer that is going to help me at all. They're going to come back, well, we like A or we like B, because that's what you're trying to say right now. We have discussion going on there, and they'll come up with something.
Well, again, nothing to send down then if the board's consensus is to not send anything. If you want planning staff to start the process of looking at what it takes to rezone to industrial for a half-mile corridor along County Road 1.
And I'd like it to be done by next Tuesday.
We'll start that process, and it will not be done by next Tuesday.
Why not?
But
We've come up with a county administrator and makes
we can
government operate.
We can show you a map of what the heavy industrial along there would look like, but the process will take longer than
You've never told me that we can't have it next Tuesday. Now, this is the first time you're telling me that, and David always gets involved, and planning gets involved, and it's here the next Tuesday.
I can show you a map, and that'd be about it.
That's what I want, a map. Very good.
We can have that.
I can operate off of a map.
We can get that for you by next
Operate off a map for, 40-some years of my life, 50-some years of my life.
The other thing that was just a reminder, the moratorium that was on there, you had given us direction that we wanted to do something and that you wanted to remove the moratorium afterwards, so just keep that on your schedule as well.
Unless Bob wants to remove the moratorium, do you? No, I don't either. So, I don't know what Doug wants.
No, I believe it has a deadline.
No,
It's extended for a year.
And it's serving a purpose.
Come back up. Okay,
So next Tuesday.
next Tuesday we'll have a
There
map
you
for
go. Is that when we talk about your extension of your contract?
Nope.
No, okay.
Well, let's talk about it now.
Yeah, we'll give them a little time. Okay. And I want to thank you, and do not forget.
Thank you.
That is very important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go back into,
I move that we adjourn the Board of County Commissions and then go into the Board of County Election Canvassers.
Second.
how do you vote?
Aye.
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 We processed all the provisionals that were qualified.
Excuse me, are we going to talk about the voting maps? Did you say?
We
So
can-
anybody that's leaving doesn't care about the voting maps, and that's all right. Less people there, the better it is sometimes. Go ahead.
We reviewed the provisionals and ran those through the scanner. We now ended up with a 58.31% turnout. We counted 288 provisionals. Our total now is, we had 26,578 voters, and we need a motion then to certify the November 6th general election. There were no changes in the outcome of the election due to the provisionals.
There you go.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion that we certify the election on November 6th.
I'll second it.
How do you vote?
Aye.
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 As Louis stated, the two new commissioners will take office on January the 15th.
Go back in as regular business.
Oh, go ahead and go back in as,
No.
Yes.
Adjourn the canvas.
Thank you very much. That was good.
I move that we adjourn out of the Board of Canvassers.
Okay. Joel,
Second.
how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. See, my grandmother told me never to interrupt a lady, so you did good.
so as I was saying, the two new commissioners will take office on January 15th. The statute reads the following meeting after the second Tuesday. So that will be January the 15th. You will have a reorganization meeting, and the two new commissioners will come in. We did have a question on the ballot that concerned going from 3 members to 5 members. That did pass. 16,023 yes, 9,547 no. In visiting with Mark and David, is it next week? Yeah. Well, we would like to have a work session next week to look at potential maps and redistricting. Then on December 11th, we would like to pass a resolution that sets the new boundaries for the 5 districts in Leavenworth County. From the passing of that resolution, we have between 75 and 90 days to have an election in those 2 new districts for another commissioner. So would it be possible to have a work session next week to discuss the maps?
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that, but I sure would like to get an Attorney General's opinion whether we have to use the 2010 census or if we can use estimates.
If you look at the statute, it talks about the county commission has an opportunity every 3 years to redraw the lines. And when you redraw the lines in checking, we can use estimates that are supplied by the Secretary of State's office. It is my understanding that we can use estimates supplied by the Secretary of State's office to redraw these lines. David is looking into that to be certain of it. I have made a couple of phone calls, and I believe the estimates can be used.
And he's going to use the Secretary of State's going to use your data anyway, isn't he?
The data came from the Secretary of State's office. The Census Bureau goes through and does some estimates, and then they supply those figures to the Secretary of State's office, and then in turn, that is delivered to the local entities.
How do they come up with that data? Who do they deal with to come up with their estimate?
Well, they have to deal with us, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean,
They got to deal with us some way.
some way they
And
have
maybe
to
they
get-
go into the hospitals and see what the birthing rate was. And can we have that by next
Well-
Tuesday, David?
Commissioners, I'd be prepared to give you an opinion by next Tuesday.
Very good, thank you.
Not an Attorney General opinion, though.
We don't.
Commissioner Smith, I am still awaiting a response from the last request that this board forwarded for an opinion, so I doubt if we could receive a request by next Tuesday.
I agree.
And we don't want to do that to the next group.
We don't have time to do that, but I just thought maybe this is
We
so
won't be
time-sensitive and critical that maybe the Attorney General would give us a quick opinion.
No.
Commissioner Smith, I will reach out to the Office of the Attorney General to see what guidance they can provide, but I don't know if it would come in the form of a formal opinion.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
at this point, I'd take an informal opinion.
There is quite a difference between the 2010 census information and current estimates that we have available.
And when it's done, there'll be a difference. We can be conservative. It doesn't have to be a fifth, a fifth, a fifth, a fifth. It
No,
could be.
it doesn't. We also checked on that, just as close in population as possible. But it does not give us certain percentage that the data has to be in between.
So, okay, so we'll have a work session next Tuesday. David will have his. Janae will have hers. And we'll be making a decision the following Tuesday.
December 11th when we shoot.
Okay. Any more discussion on that?
No.
Bob?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk. We appreciate that. Anything you want to, prior to adjournment?
Like I said, the Strangers Church is having their fundraiser at the Bowling Grange today from 11 to 1, 5 to 7, lunch. I attended Baser's City Council meeting last week. Today I'll be going to the opening of the Armory in Tonganoxie at 4:30. And
I think that's making us a lot of tax money, too.
that's federal. Got a list of some volunteers that have volunteered to serve on the Mental Health Task Force. Didn't know if you guys needed to approve these or look at these or.
The mental health, is that the one that came in and asked for the
Well,
2 mils?
it was a consensus that I could put together a mental health task force to get together and get all the data that would support what we need in this county.
Are they going to inquire to the schools why they didn't look at it? The cities didn't look at it?
There's people from the city, there's people from the schools.
Well, the city, if they have people there, they're going to say, well, I'll let the county handle it, and the school's going to say, let the county. Is there going to be somebody there that's going to voice the other opinion?
Well, I plan on being there.
There, that's another opinion. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. So who are these people?
All right, so far we've got Vernon Fields has agreed to. Tonganoxie was going to supply possibly their chief of police, but I have not had conversation with him. Lansing Chief of Police, Brandon Johannes has agreed,
From
Chamber of Commerce. Pastor Ron Swain, Tonganoxie, he's on the Suicide Prevention Task Force already. Laura Bateson, not familiar with her. The Sheriff, County Attorney, Keith Rickard, and Kim Knight.
So not very many from
Schools, no.
Schools or the city.
Well, Vernon Fields is a city council member, Baser.
Yeah, on Baser, but city of Leavenworth. Not much representation, and they are.
Well, we haven't really reached out yet. Maybe Vicki. Oh, that's correct. I forgot. Mr. Griswold.
Oh, Mike Griswold.
Yes, yes.
Very good, thank you.
I do have him down here.
We are going to have some stations up here, and if the other two don't object, where you can just, come up and sit. And the last couple meetings to where you understand, because it isn't going to flow this way again. No, there'll be not as much humor. It'll be bland. How do you vote? Aye, aye, aye. Hopefully Douglas
Stick to agenda.
Hopefully Douglas can keep it going. So, we got Dancing with the Stars. We're in competition with Dancing with the Stars. And when people are just watching it on the internet, it's unbelievable. So.
Do we receive royalties?
Yes, royalties. Yeah. Okay.
That's what's called a bribe.
Oh.
Let's finish your.
Yeah, this has something to do with that. Because this is Jefferson County. It's an Oskaloosa paper.
Yeah.
It says they're holding their first suicide awareness class in Winchester. So it's statewide, all the counties are dealing with this
Very
mental
good.
health issue, so we need to get out.
But you'll make sure that other entities have a financial input.
That's what this is about,
Okay.
is how we can fund this and where there's funding available and what the needs are of the communities.
Very good. Okay, anything else?
No, sir, that's all I've got.
Bob, I want you to start coming forward with stuff. I went to the Chamber of
I'm
Military.
trying to lay low.
Below. You got another day now. Military and Business Social. It was very nice. I had parade. Oh my God, it was unfair.
You were inside.
Still unfair. I couldn't put the curtains on to keep the heat in. But it was probably the lowest turnout we've ever had. It's still a great parade, and the system is hopefully going to continue. They're looking for help, volunteers. You know, the word's out, we're the biggest and best parade west of the Mississippi, because we don't count California. California's not even part of society
I believe the
anymore.
majority of the people in this room were there.
Yeah, and that's nice. And
It's probably the worst weather we've ever had on the
yeah,
Veterans
worst
Day
weather, and
parade.
it was cold. But it was still a good parade. Hopefully in years to come, I'll be able to watch the parade rather than driving the LARPs around, which are the I have one thing that the Port Authority, this is all Port Authority stuff, but I thought this was interesting. I'm going through articles, because I have written down here pay. We've got to make a decision on what we're going to pay the county commissioners. And we're not going to do that today, but it's going to be coming up. Everybody needs to be thinking on it. I had one article that showed, and I think it was prior to '79, because this article here is December the 5th, 1979. I keep this. Without the past, there is no future. Now, anybody doesn't believe in that, they need to take another brownie with marijuana in it. This is where Jim Nixon, I can mention his name because he was a lousy reporter. This is 1979, talking about Foth and Vining. Mr. Vining was probably one of the best county commissioners we've ever had.
Noxie man.
Tommy Noxie man, good man. He had one other good one down there. George Sprague. George, a good man. And both of those people are gone now. But it was on pay raise. Foth and Vining voted in favor. Commissioner Clem voted no. This was on a 7% pay raise for the county.
For all employees or just county commissioners?
All employees.
All employees.
Yeah, all employees. So I thought that was a nice thing to do. They were catching people up according to the rules, and it was a county commissioner thing. But Nixon comes up with, they no longer, with the 7%, came out $11,400. So we need to be thinking about, are we going to increase? And I have a report coming in from the clerk, right, of all counties in all salaries and how many people serve in that district. And that was to come to me, do not disseminate that to the Leavenworth Times because they need to do their own homework. John, I didn't mean that. But it is amazing. There was an article also that I went through, and I have about 20 of them, and I'll bring one at a time, about how the media is going down on their reporters and can no longer do the research. And we see that more and more. They don't have the time to do the research. John, he's here, there, everywhere. In my opinion, the only time he doesn't get one of the big ones is because the publisher wants to take that because he thinks he's, in my opinion, more important than John. John is way more important than anybody else on the Leavenworth Times, except maybe the sports editor. And that doesn't mean you don't have to write bad things about me or good things, John. So I thought it was interesting. We need to be making that decision. That one's gone. And that was December the 5th, 1979. And that was a good time at the county because Henry Howard and I got along good, and we get along fairly good. So we need to be proceeding and going forward with all these things that we have to get done before we leave the county. And I don't know what this article, let's just get this one out of the way. There was something about meeting Tuesday. Yeah, that's what it was. Work to be done on commission expansion. 75 to 90 days, that's what she said. So we're moving forward on that. We want to get the hard things done so the next commission does not have to suffer through the 1.6 million. Somebody wrote a editorial, not an editorial, this was a letters to the editor, and said we'd spent 1.6 million, and I think they're taking Bob's figure and how he comes up with his. I don't know, and that I'm not going to question him on that, but I do this quote all the time. It's Mark Twain. First, get your facts right, and then distort them as you think you need to accomplish what you want to do. It said we had spent $1.6 million, and I will have her bring those, if you'll have her bring those figures again. And we will present those to the people, how much we have spent. Now, they may be the payoffs to the two ladies, they may be including that in there. I don't know if Bob's including that. So if she'll bring those figures, next Tuesday, we'll make next Tuesday busy. Tuesday. Okay?
I can provide those figures to the board.
Yeah, she's got
They've
those.
already printed them off.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Okay, anything else on anybody's mind?
Little Stranger Church lunch,
Yep,
Bowling Grange.
I think I'll go out there. Well,
It's all that good home-cooked food.
we're not gonna have collusion if you and I eat at the same place.
No.
Has to be
I
on
won't
the
set with
agenda.
you.
Huh?
Has to be on the agenda.
Well, we're not gonna put it on agenda, Bob, okay? That's the state. Oh, mental health. Have the school boards or the cities asked the state to contact the feds? Again, it was announced, and I don't remember how many billions it was, that the federal government is going to disseminate to the states. We need to find out, has anybody gotten off their you-know-what to ask the state to go after that money?
Hopefully that's what this task force can do.
Well, but I asked that a long time ago, and we should have done that because I mentioned that.
And maybe they have. And
Yeah.
we will find
Then
out
we'll know.
when we have our first meeting.
Yeah. No, I don't think, I'd rather have it come from the state that no, we have not, or yes, we have, and send me a copy of the letter where you requested it, okay?
Okay.
I really don't trust government.
We are government.
I don't trust us,
Okay.
okay?
All right.
So, if that's all, I'll entertain a motion to,
Motion to adjourn.
have you got enough pins on that?
I'm trying to fill it up before I leave.
Okay.
Second.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
thank you for coming.